Okay, good morning, everyone. Hemshech Ayin Beis, we're on page 1158. We finished yesterday the Rebbe's take in the Rebbe's Maimer, B'yem Hashmini Atzeres Tovshin Tezvov. So the Rebbe, we went through basically Siv Gimel, Siv Beis and Gimel in the Rebbe's Maimer, and we finished it. We finished at the end of chapter 3, and I said I would get back to it. But basically, the Rebbe adds, in explaining the fourth level of Bittul, the Rebbe's words that he adds, and I'm going to just compare it. In Ayin Beis, he said the following, page 1158. He said, Adalid, Yesh HaAmiti, it has within it, the Eir, has with it the true Yesh HaAmiti, same thing in the Oyer, you have that Deya, the Ein Sof Yesh HaAmiti, and everything else is Kala, as if nothing, it's completely nullified. She says it's in the Oyer in a state of Yediyah, and the Bittul is a Bittul Primi V'Atzmi. The Rebbe adds explanation, and I'm quoting the Rebbe right now. He says, Eifon Adalit is completely Shalei Be'erech to the other three, because the other three was all about how it is Mitzad the Oyer, how the energy, the divine energy sees it. And there are three levels of Bittul, of Hedet Tfisis Malkum, like the candle in the light of the sun. You have number two, Ein Zoloscha, that its entire existence is dependent on and only with the source. And the third is even with the source, all it does is reflect Atzmus. Level 4 is what does Atzmus have? How does Atzmus see all of this? Not how the Eir sees it. So that language is not there in Ayin Beis. So even though once you see the Rebbe, you go back and say, that's what it means, but the Rebbe definitely gives a deeper Havana in what it means, what he says, the fourth level, that the Eir has the Yesh HaAmiti. If you think about it, it's really the Kavana in Ayin Beis, because he says clearly that Eifon Adalid is the Yesh HaAmiti, the way it's in Atzmus. In other words, Eir is carrying the way Atzmus sees existence. But the Rebbe's words are literally, he says these words, Moshamoyer Yodea Sa'er, Vidamoyer Veist Eir. And how it looks at it, the Mabit Alav. It's Be'efon Achel Legamri. And this Bittul, Mitzad the Moyer, also transfers over to the Eir due to the Eir's connection. So spiegelt sich up in the Eir. Yeah. And then the Rebbe continues and explains something else that he doesn't say in Ayin Beis explicitly. That just like the Moyer is Shalei Be'erech Legabe Eir, the same thing, the Bittul Mitzad the Moyer is Shalei Be'erech to the Bittul Mitzad the Eir. So what do we have now with the level 4? We have now, even in Mitzias Nimtza, in the Eir, we also have the perspective of the built-in Mitzias Nimtza of Atzmus. That's what I'm explaining. It doesn't say built-in Mitzias Nimtza here. I'm just trying to explain what would make the Moyer so Shlei Be'erech to the Eir. Everything that Atzmus is, that nothing else but Atzmus is, now we even have access to that. Because the Eibishter puts places that into the Eir as well, due to the Eir's Bittul. So the first three levels is how the Eir comes to, through its own, the Eir inherently has levels of Bittul, all the way the Bittul to the Moyer. But we don't know how the Moyer looks at it until you have the fourth level. So that's an interesting take on it. So if in the language of a shliach or of an eved, of someone completely dedicated to the melech, the eved ha-melech, ha-shliach to the meshaleach, so the first three levels is talking about how batel the shliach is. You could say he's completely nullified in the presence of his mishaleach, of the Rebbe. You could say, but he still exists, and on his own, he shines very loudly, very largely. Number two is that his whole existence, all it is an extension of the mishaleach, but he still exists. And the third one, there's as if he's invisible. It's only the mishaleach shining through him. But it's still all through the purpose and function of Eir as a Megala. It reveals. The shliach, for example, reveals through his work. What about the Mishaleach himself? What is he thinking about all this? How does he see the whole thing? So as much as the shliach is so-called bottle to the Mishaleach, it's still the shliach's through the lens of the shliach. Now, even third level is taka. He's only reflecting atzmus, like we learned. There's no existence of his own. He's completely a reflection of what his Mishaleach is. Like we learned, it's not a mitzias, loy ha v'loy ha. He's not a separate existence, but he's already something that's not atzmus. In the fourth level, it's like the Mishaleach revealing what's in his mind that the Oyer on its own would not know, but also that now gets transferred to the Oyer. In the Moshel, that would be like the Rebbe telling a Shliach, now let me tell you something what I want to get done. Not just what you're bottled, how bottled you are to me. I have something that I want to now introduce. A new mitzvah, a new campaign. So now, so-called the Mocher, the Moyer is speaking, and the Moyer is telling us what to do. But the truth is, the point here is the Bittul that comes from that the way the Moyer sees the Oyer is much higher level of Bittul than how the Oyer is bottled to the Moyer. Because even the deepest level of Oyer's Bittul, it's still an existence. But it's a non-existent existence in level 3, like we learned. But it's still something because we called it. He said, you can't say something is, the Friedrich Rebbe explained in Tzadik Dalet, you can't say it's bottled if there's no Metzias there. And that's why I explained it. It's a Metzias that's like non-Metzias. But the Bittul, as the Moyer sees it, in the case, let's say Atzmus sees it, there it's completely, there's not even a Metzias altogether, not even a non-Metzias Metzias. That's ultimately what level 4 is about. Now, it would have been good to see what the Rebbe, Friedrich Rebbe would have said in Tzadik Dalet, but we don't have that. So the closest we have is what we have, is the Rebbe's Maimer, but even that doesn't elaborate. He just says that the Bittul mitzad the Moyer, just like Atzmus, is infinitely distant from everything, including Oyer, that Bittul also. So in a strange way, this may sound strange, but I would say like this. The third level of Bittul of Oyer, it's still Oyer. You're not negating the fact that Oyer is reflecting Atzmus. You're only negating the fact that Oyer has any mitzias of its own. So we said clearly it doesn't. Because in third level, F is Biltecha, there's nothing there. It's only Atzmus expressing himself. But it's Atzmus expressing himself through Oyer. When you're talking on level 4, it's almost like saying that the Oyer reveals that it is nothing compared to the Moyer. Because the way Oyer sees that can be two ways. That the Oyer recognizes I have no existence but the Moyer, or more than that, the Oyer recognizes that all it is just, doesn't recognize it at all. It's just a reflection of Atzmus. But the type of infinite distance that Atzmus says, Lo zeh kol Atzmus shenisav mimena Oyer, does Oyer know that? Or you could argue, Oyer could only say, all I am is I know that I'm a reflection of what Atzmus wants. But to say that all of Atzmus is nothing but, that Kol Atzmus is not the Iker of Atzmus, is not Oyer, can Oyer declare that? And now it appears in level 4, yes, that Oyer says that all of Atzmus is not me, which is a chiddush in a way, because you would say Oyer is totally bottled, but Oyer can't tell you about something that it is not. It can only tell you about what it is, that I'm revealing that God wants to reveal through me. I'm revealing divine awareness. And the highest level it would be that it's completely non-existent, because all I am is expressing, but I am, like he said, there is something that's not Atzmus. But to say that what Atzmus is, that Atzmus is not the Iker of Atzmus, is not Oyer, that only the Moyer can state. And even that, in level 4, that Bittul also carries on to the Oyer. So basically, like I said yesterday, in the example with infinity and finite, existence itself, we're talking about the Metzias Nimtza of Oyer, existence itself says that I have absolutely no value. Even what I am doesn't have any value, because Atzmus is completely different reality. That's what level 4 introduces, the completely different reality that Atzmus is, even from the highest level of Oyer. Whereas level 3 reveals Atzmus through Oyer, level 4 reveals Atzmus beyond Oyer. That's how I would explain partially level 4. Okay.
And it is being revealed in a Metzius, our Metzius.
Yeah. The Mitzias Nimtza in Oyer, and ultimately we also can come to that because through our Izbonanus we can come to that appreciation. Yeah. I just want to see a language in Tzaddik Dalet for a moment. One piece I want to see. 1 second. Okay. If there are no questions, I'll continue now. Bottom of page 1158. Was the last piece I explained understood? Because I think that's a key thing. Key thing that we can actually see existence through the eyes of Atzmus, who for him all of existence is completely meaningless. I'll give an example. I want to give a further example on this. There's a story with the Baal Shem Tov that he once was praying for someone who was in need, and he heard from heaven, they said that the Gzeir Gzarti, the Eibush already decreed that this person is not going to live. So you should stop praying. But the Baal Shem Tov had such rachmanis and love for the person. It was an almona, I think, who had a child that was sick. I forgot all the details. And he continued praying. And Shamayim said, listen, Tzaddik Geizer, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mekayim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Geizer, Tzaddik Mevatel. So in other words, a Tzaddik has the power, Taka, to override the Gzeira in heaven. But because you changed the plan, so to speak. You tampered with the whole plan that God wanted, and you were told not to do so, you will lose your chelik in Elam Haba. So the Baal Shem Tov began to dance, b'simcha. And his Talmidim asked him, what are you dancing? He's not losing Elam Hazeh. He didn't lose Elam Hazeh, fine. You lost Elam Haba. Your very neshama's nitzchi is its eternal journey in experiencing godliness. There's nothing greater than that. You lost your whole... So he said, yeah, because now, for the first time in my life, I can serve God for absolutely no ulterior motive. There's no Elam Hazeh, no Elam Haba. The way the story ends, I don't know if this is an accurate ending, but the way I heard it is that in Shamayim, when they heard that, they said, no. Give him back his Elam Haba. That pleasure, we're not going to allow him. They should have completely, serving for completely no reason. That's too much. So I don't know if that was the Baal Shem Tov's kavanah, but that's the way the story goes. The point I want to make is, when the Alter Rebbe said, Mili b'shamayim, im chalecha fatzli, ich darf nicht dein Gan Eden tachten, ich darf nicht dein Gan Eden Elyon, ich darf nicht dein Elam Haba. Ich will dich allein. I don't want your Gan Eden, your lower and higher. As the Rebbe says, the Alter Rebbe knew what Gan Eden was well, and he knew what Elam Haba was. And he says, I want you. So what does that mean exactly? We could have a lakus, you could have a bittul that's not about me. It's only about God. My whole life is only godliness. I know that's a high level. Obviously, for us, that's just to be the full picture. Most of us begin, it's all about me. Then maybe I leave room for God once a day, or 3 times a day, or more, or less, whatever. Everybody has the God they allow into their lives. But often it's a God because the God has been good to me. So it's godliness because God provides me health, family, parnasa, other blessings. You say in davening, Hazon HaSakel, we're thanking God for sustaining us. Beautiful. So it's better than being a selfish, indulgent fresser. You're recognizing. Then there's a deeper level. It's not about me. I want God because godliness is good. but it's still good. Then comes a point, I just want God because God is real and that's all. I have no benefit from it. I'm not interested in Gan Eden, not interested in Elam Haba. I want God himself on God's terms. In a way, the Baal Shem Tov said, I can now serve for no reason at all. But is that the highest level? Let's talk for a moment what that means. That means it's not about me, it's about God. That sounds to me very much like the third level of Bittul, of Efes Biltecha. The first level of Bittul is I am nullified before God because God is greater than I am. But that doesn't mean you don't exist. It just means you're nullified, yeah. Bittul to something greater. The second level is my whole existence is due to him. Without him, I have no existence. So even that you could say is still your value. Because you value your existence, and your existence you come to realize is not you, it's God. That's why it's a bittul. I'm not saying it's yeshes, but it's about your mitzvah being completely dependent on and wouldn't exist without, like we said, Ayin. If we could see the true reality of what's giving sustenance to existence, it's really godliness. So that's the second level. The third level, no, it's not about me altogether. All I am is just a reflection of Atzmus. I'm only a reflection. That's all I am. It's not about because I wouldn't exist without him. Even with him, all I am is God, is God's energy, if you wish. But this is not necessarily the highest level that the Alter Rebbe and the Baal Shem Tov meant, because that's still that all I am is just a reflecting godliness. What about him? All I want is Atzmus to speak. I'm not interested in being even a reflection of him. That's not the point. Obviously, all I am is only a reflection, but even deeper, Atzmus. And that's why the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe said that I don't need any Giluim altogether. The whole thing is let Atzmus be. That's all I want. I want Atzmus to be. I want Atzmus on Atzmus's terms, not on any other terms. Because even level 3, it's true, it's not on the terms of Ur. So in a way, seems to be that level, but it's still, as I said, all it is Atzmus expressing itself through me. Here, it's only Atzmus, period. Atzmus on Atzmus terms. And it could be that is the deeper meaning in what the Alter Rebbe said and the Baal Shem Tov. So it could be level 3, it could be level 4. I'm just explaining that in a deeper way, level 4 is something that has nothing, it's only Atzmus, 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 and that's it. So, Dira B'Tachtenim, you could say, Dira B'Tachtenim, because we're fulfilling the Nesave, God desires a Dira B'Tachtenim, so how do we do it? Through our Aveda. That still could be level 3, because it's basically you're fulfilling God's Nesave. So the whole world is only a Dira for Atzmus. But how does Atzmus see it? How does Atzmus experience it? That would be completely negating, not even saying we are an expression of him. It's purely Atzmus in his own mysterious way is being expressed. And even that we can also connect with. So in other words, we're connecting with something that negates our very existence in the fullest way, because now Atzmus is in the fullest sense of the word manifest on his terms, not on our terms. Anyway, I just added a little more spice to this. I mentioned yesterday that it could be the two levels of asay ritzein cha k'ritzeinei, make your desire like his desire. So in other words, if you desire one thing, you change your desire to be aligned with Hashem's desire. Then there's another expression, asay ritzeinei k'ritzein cha, make his desire your desire. That's not redundant. There's the other way around. The beginning point is God's desire. What does God want? On his terms. Not just you're aligning yourself to God's desire. You're beginning, what does God want? I remember someone, and then you align yourself to that. I remember once somebody came to us, it's a wealthy guy. I asked him for a donation for a project. So he thought about it, and then he said to me, there are things that Rebbe likes, and there are things that Rebbe wants. The Rebbe likes, for example, you want to build a mikveh. Of course the Rebbe likes it. But then there's things that if you ask the Rebbe on his, not do you like me to build a mikveh and I want your bracha. Yeah. There are things the Rebbe doesn't like and doesn't want to do. But there are things he likes. But let's say you ask the Rebbe, I don't know what I should do. You tell me what you want done. That's a very different question. Not whether you approve and you say it's a good thing and I should support it. What do you want on your own? If I were to ask you what you want, not whether I should align myself to what you want, but you tell me what you want, and then I'll make sure to make it happen. That would be a little example, I think, in Aveda, the difference between the two. So one is basically you're aligning yourself to what the Rebbe wants. The other is you want to know what the Rebbe wants, and then you become an expression of that. Yeah, I think that works to some extent. I can't say in the full sense of the word that's the highest level, but it definitely in Aveda works to some point. Okay. The reason I'm stopping again, if you have questions, because right now he's going to go. We did a long discussion till now. Which goes back to the beginning of this mimer. So I want to now he's going to go move to the Ayin of the Yesh HaNivra. After explaining these 4 types and levels of Bittul of the Ayin of the Yesh HaAmiti, he's now going to discuss the Ayin of the Yesh HaNivra. Now remember again, the Frierdiker Rebbe explained that these 3 levels is the Oyer HaKolol, the Oyer Esespheres Blima, the Oyer after the Tzimtzum, and the Oyeris and Kalim. I wanted to say one more thing. The Rebbe, Frierdiker Rebbe never told us because he didn't finish the Hemshech, what would be level 4. I think level 4 in the context of Oyeris, Oyer HaKolol, Oyer that's after the Tzimtzum, but it's not yet full substance, but it has identity. And Oyeris B'Kalim are the 3 levels of Bittul from the top down. I think the 4th you probably could say is like Yechelis HaAtzmus, the Yecholte Lahoyer. Not that the Oyer is completely encompassed and therefore just an expression of Atzmus. It's Atzmus's capacity. Not only for Oyer, frankly, B'chlal, Yechelis HaAtzmus. That may be level 4 because it's how Atzmus sees it. And the Bittul, the Oyer. Just throwing that out as a possibility, but it's a complete guess because the Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe doesn't hint to it, and the Rebbe doesn't hint to it either directly as the 4th level, but maybe that's the 4th level.
Does that make it really oil? I think it's not really oil, the Holtoi. I hear what you're saying, but
no, but remember, he calls it the 4th level of Bittul and Oyer. That's why I said that. Remember, level 4 is the 4th level of Bittul and Oyer, how the Moyer sees Oyer. That's the point. That's what I meant. So the Moyer sees Oyer as Ayin ve'efes, lo kol zeh kol atzmus, lahavas men Oyer. But that too is Oyer now picking that up. That's why I said that. But anyway, it's about atzmus. It's not about the Oyer. That's the point. Okay. Go ahead. You want to ask something? Cheskel?
Yeah, please. Does this level teach us something about Atzmus? We learned something about Atzmus from the material existence. Does this fact that there's total Bittul, does this help us give us a greater understanding of Atzmus?
Well, since like he calls it the Dei Amitis, that the Oyer has the Dei Amitis, you have to say somewhat yes, but not quite Mitzius Atzmuse nevertheless, or built a Mitzius Nimtza, maybe part of it. It could be, I mean, I can explain it 2 ways. Let me backtrack. He definitely says that the true Deya of Atzmus now exists in Oyer. So I wouldn't say Oyer reveals it. I would say it's transferred into Oyer. Let me just see. He doesn't use the expression that Oyer reveals this. That's why I'm careful a little in my language. He's saying the Bittul of Oyer is on this 4th level of the Dei Amitis, how Atzmus sees Oyer. For how Atzmus sees, the Rebbe says how it sees Oyer in a completely Ayin of Efes Mamish way. So based on that, I would say it's more the Bittul. It reveals Bittul as Atzmus sees Bittul, not necessarily revealing to us the nature of Atzmus. That's one way you could teach. Another way you could say that it also reveals for us the nature of Atzmus. It's mashma from the language. It's mashma the first thing I just said. The second maybe can be included, but it's not. I can't say 100%. I'd have to read it a few more times, because then when he says Adei Ein Sof Hu Yesh HaAmiti, that's the Yesh HaAmiti. But he doesn't use anything here like Mitzusim Atzmusei or Biltim Mitzias Nimtza or Mechuyev HaMitzias. So I would lead to say that, remember, at the end of the day, it's a Bittul and Oyer. So Oyer at the end of the day is Gili, which so means that Oyer is revealing and expressing a Bittul that's completely beyond itself. It's a Bittul that how Atzmus sees everything. So that, I think, is the real goal here in level 4. Does that include point number 2? As I said, possibly, but there's not enough data, information here to say that for sure. I'm just looking at the Rebbe's expression. How the Rebbe said, yeah, it's mashma that's talking about the bittul part. So it's the highest possible level of bittul, but it's not necessarily the highest possible level of understanding atzmus. But remember, it could be that once you combine yesh, hanivra, and oyer, the ayin, the 4th level, maybe then you could see where they both really complement each other. So now, because the oyer now is not just how it sees it, it's how the moyer sees it, it's how atzmus sees oyer, and the yesh reveals how atzmus is a mitziusim atzmusi and built a mitzius nimtza. So now maybe their joining and their fusion is much deeper, because the oyer is only here to tell us about the bittul due to atzmus. The yesh tells us about the atzmus of atzmus, so to speak. So maybe those two come together. That's how probably the likely scenario, or the likely way to explain it.
Is there a conclusion? Is
No,
there?
I don't. It's like anything Chassidus. You could speculate one way or the other. I would lean toward number 1, because Oyer always is still not. Because if Oyer can be Mitzius Masmusa, what do you need Yesh for? And the Oyer at the end of the day does not have that element of Mitzius Masmusa. So Oyer can only give us the ultimate bittul, how everything is batul. As a matter of fact, the more I think about it, I'm convinced that's the way it is. No, there's no way that level 4 reveals to us the atzmus within atzmus. It reveals the bittul through the eyes of atzmus, as opposed to the bittul from the eyes of oyer. I would be my conclusion, to be honest, because when more I think about it, that's the whole point of Chassidus. It's the yesh that will reveal the atzmi. It's the oyer that reveals the highest levels of bittul, and that's its purpose. Oyer was never meant to be megala atzmus as atzmus is. Oyer was meant to megala, period. What atzmus is needs the yesh to really reveal that, to really express that aspect of it. That's how I would explain it.
Right.
I was wondering, since that's the highest level of Metzias Nimsa, this level of Or, and its total reflection is that there's no existence, that would tell us that Atzmos is in a totally different dimension. It would indicate that he's built Metzias Nimsa from the Or itself.
That's not this. I don't see this, and I don't see that point being made in this mimer.
No, it wasn't made, I don't think, but one might think that, though.
No,
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily conclude. He said clearly that Oyer does not tell us that Atzmus is built to Mitzias Nimtza, because Oyer from the sun, it also reveals Oyer does not prove anything. Oyer of the sun is not built to Mitzias Nimtza. So Oyer does not tell us what kind of moyer it is. That he said explicitly. So, and it's not its role to tell us that. It's only when there's a yesh that Oyer can tell us that.
Okay.
It sounds to me also like
just one more second. We say that the sun could be the source of Or, et cetera, but when we narrow it down to that this is the highest level of Metzias Nimsa, then it's not that it could be from this source, could be that source. We know what the source is.
But you don't know built Mitzias Nimtza, you can't know from Oyer, because Oyer doesn't have built Mitzias Nimtza in it through its own effort. It's only if Atzmus expresses it through Oyer. Oyer does not have that. Oyer can only tell you I have a source. Oyer cannot tell you I have a source that doesn't have a source. Because Oyer doesn't have that element, doesn't have it. It's only through the Yesh that happens. I mean, you keep saying the same thing, but Chassidus doesn't say this. Chassidus says the opposite.
Okay. It can't tell us that the source is a different dimension. Okay.
It can tell you it's a different dimension, but it can't tell you what the dimension is.
Okay. Good.
Obviously,
Okay.
Oyer knows that the Moyer is infinite from it, but it doesn't know what form or fashion. It doesn't manifest in Oyer, because Oyer is always declaring there's a source. The highest levels of Oyer are saying, I don't exist. Even higher, all it is Atzmus seeing everything in total bittul. That, yes. Now, does that together with the Yesh, I said, can give you the full picture. That's all I said.
Okay, good. Thank you. I think that's what I would conclude also. Thank you. Okay.
Anybody wants to say anything else?
Yeah, it sounds that the way that you said this is the correct way. But there is only one more thing. According to this, lo ze kol ha'atzmus. So my question is, when we are talking about nisave is in the center of kol ha'atzmus, or only in connection to us?
Say that again. I didn't understand the question.
The way that we concluded now, that you concluded, it's on the right way, that even Adalet is talking about how the Atmos is seeing everything. But still, they are saying that lo ze kol ha'atzmus. So my question is, when we're talking about Nisave Kodesh Baruch Hu Yishlei Dor B'Tachtenim, the Nisave Kodesh Baruch Hu, this is again to kol ha'atzmus, takel kol ha'atzmus, or only the part that is negea to the Tachtenim, to the oil, the daled darges of the oil, daled ifanim.
Well, the language in Chassidus is that, first of all, Nesava and Oyer are not discussed in this context. Puts Oyer aside, Nesava Kodesh Baruch Hu Chassidus speaks about is Nesava ba'atzmusei. That Atzmus Nesava leis Baruch adira leis Baruch b'tachtenim. So Tachtenim, which is the Yesh HaNivra, he says Nageres HaKedesh, is rooted in the Yesh HaAmiti, where the Nesava begins. And that is the Yesh HaAmiti she'en le'ila v'siba. So I think when you talk about the track of Nesava, you're talking about the ein le'ila v'siba, Yesh HaAmiti, desiring Nesava dafke adira in Tachtenim. And there, the Yesh HaAmiti does get reflected in the Yesh HaNivra. The question that you're asking is, in the Maimon Tzadik Dalet, he also said, Lo ze kol ha'atzmus shenivra memena elamus. So I think you have to distinguish between the creation of the worlds. The worlds are just as bottle and even more bottle than Oyer, because they don't have any. They're Ayin ve'efes mamish. He brought it clear from Shayichad v'Amuna. The difference is that in the worlds, the Eber says, Nesava Kadosh Baruch Hu. Atzmus wants, in the Yesh, he wants a dira. It doesn't say that Atzmus wants a dira in the Oyer, which wouldn't make sense anyway, because the Oyer is already bottled. Basically, Nesava Kadosh Baruch Hu, I'll translate, means this. Atzmus wants a dira in a existence that's not bottled. And it should through its avodah become bottle and adira. He doesn't want a dira in a thing that's bottle already. Because what's the ein melech b'lo yam? He needs an am. He needs a nifred. That it's a nifred b'hargoshosei. It feels separate. Dafke tachtenim and a yesh, like he says in Shaykh in the Perik Lamed Vov in Tanya, and dafke there. So Atzmus basically relates to dafke helam. That's where he wants his dira. The Oyer is a tool that Atzmus created, an instrument, how to create a dira, the bittul necessary that it should be a dira leis baruch. Because it's not just Atzmus in the yesh, you want it to be dira begoli, that there should be bittul, because if the yesh remains a yesh, it won't be a dira either. So the taiva of Atzmus is in the yesh. And the way you get the yesh to become a dir is through the oir. So basically, when you say lo yizeh kol ha'atzmus shenesav min ha'oir, you're saying oir is just atmos is far beyond it. The world's also lo yizeh kol ha'atzmus shenivra min ha'elam is atmos is not defined as a beira. But then there's another aspect. Nesav HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want a home in the dira. That doesn't make the bria not bottle. The bria still is completely totally in the Elam Hashem Dvarcha Nitza B'Shamayim. What the Eibishter wants is dafke the not gilui shebezeh, the yes shebezeh, not the. So in other words, you have to look at existence in two ways. One is that it's completely bottle b'mitzias in reality, efes be'emes. He said efes bilode be'emes. The second is that in this helam of this world, that's where the Eibishter wants a dira, and that's where atzmus comes into play. Now, to say Zekol Atzmus that he wants a dira or not, that I never saw anywhere. So I can't speculate if that's all of Atzmus or beyond. I would say probably something like this. Atzmus, Stafka Atzmus wants the dira. The dira is not Nesava Be'er, not Nesava in the Kav, not Nesava, not Silas, Nesava, Loi, Latzmuse, Dafka Atzmus is the Nesava. But doesn't mean that we will always experience all the aspects of Atzmus. It could be that once Atzmus is begoli, b'tachtenim, Atzmus brings everything with him. Some of it we will experience and some we won't experience. In Chassidus it says there are many things Atzmus has, we have no idea that he has. So will we ever have an idea? Maybe not. I would say definitely not, because Atzmus always will remain Atzmus. But the fact is that the Nesava is in Atzmus, not in Giluyim. That's how I would frame it.
Okay. Yeah, that is very fascinating what you said, that the Nisavi is a dire, and the dire is davke with the helam, davke in the yesh. So this is not a stira. It could be that the Nisavi is the kol ha'atzmus, not that we understand the kol ha'atzmus, like you said it.
Well, you remember, etzem asher tefes b'miktzasa at the tefes b'kulei. So there's also that, so in other words, even though we relate to the aspect of atzmus and tachtenim, and remember, when you talk about atzmus, you don't need giluyim. If you connect to your father, like he says in Tanya, if you hug the king, you hug all of the king. It doesn't mean you have to understand it. It just means you're touching it. So that's also big, The Rebbe spoke a lot in the last years, Nun Aleph, Nun Beis, about aspects that Atzmus is bichlal beyond anything we could even imagine. He says that anything we explain and anything we understand is not really Atzmus. And he kept on talking about how Atzmus is shalei be'erech. So I think you also have to keep in mind, to speak about Atzmus, you don't have to contain Atzmus. That's not the goal. The goal is you want a relationship with Atzmus. So Atzmus is allowing a relationship, but Atzmus is always going to be not us. It's always going to be that way. And Bittul teaches us that. We don't need to be, someone will say, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? If I'm a partnership, I want to be an equal partner. It doesn't work that way. When you completely come to these highest levels of Bittul, you come to realize that when you're relating to Atzmus, it's not about you. Yes, Atzmus wants a dira b'tachtenim, but like he explains in Chelik Vav L'Kut Sichos, in Shmois, I mentioned many times, but it's not about you. It's not because you're mashlim his kavana. It's the exact opposite. It's Atzmus vila dira. Now, there are lower levels of Bittul where you feel you're doing God a favor, or you feel you're fulfilling something, but the highest levels, Atzmus vila dira, you'll never know why. There's a taivan ishtakin kasha. And the fact is, Atzmus wants a dira. There's you building the dira, but then there's Atzmus wants the dira. So I think when you talk about the highest levels, we don't need to have a relationship with that in any type of, on our terms. But that's why you have the Aveda throughout history, throughout Zman Hagol, Masenu V'Avedasenu, to be able to internalize this as much as possible. That's why you don't jump to level 4 of Bittul before you go through the first 3 levels. You can't come to B'chol Ma'idcha if you don't have B'chol Avavcha, B'chol Nafshecha. So you have to always work your way up, because then your existence is now ready to experience something beyond your existence. That doesn't happen on day one. First, you need to be in existence, a tachtenim, and a yesh. Then slowly through ner mitzvah, you sublimate yourself. More bittul, and the yesh becomes accustomed. We're not destroying the yesh. We're harnessing it. We're transforming it. We're elevating it until the point that you reach the highest levels. And then through that, you come to realize that's all about atzmus. But that's why you need all the aspects of this. There's no jumping here. You can't just jump from yesh to atzmus. You must have the ayin be'emtza. That's the whole point. Yesh HaNivra, Yesh HaAmiti. We're still going to learn about the ayin of the Yesh HaNivra, which is vital because you can't go to the ayin of the Yesh HaAmiti without going through the ayin of the Yesh HaNivra, which is what we're going to discuss next. So we'll stop here. Bottom of page, a review, bottom of page 1158. It's powerful stuff. And let's stop.